Good morning and welcome to the third video in the Right to Market series. This one, the subject matter was kind of chosen by you. I call it risk versus reward, and it's designed to answer the most common question that I receive from you guys. So I heard different variations of this dozens of times, literally dozens of times, and I'm going to read one from Athena Grayson that kind of summed it up. If I'm understanding correctly, and I've read Right to Market, lurked on K-boards, etc., you need both hot and hungry. Yeah, I know that sounds like something found in the Kindle Adult Dungeon. You need a hungry market with few books, but one that is also beginning to trend hot. I'm struggling with figuring out the hot part of hungry. Short of stumbling on one, do you have any insights on finding a sweet spot category? And this is the answer you guys are not going to like. There is no magical category on Amazon. There is no, hey, I'm going to find this category that very few people know about and make a ton of money doing it. You're looking at what's the largest category that I think I can break into and sell books with. So in my case, when I chose to sell Destroyer as I did to the military science fiction crowd, I knew that it was a crowded genre. It's very, very hot. It is very hungry, but there's also a lot of competition, and I knew that. So I took a risk. I've been very risk adverse in the past, but I figured I've learned a lot. I can, give this a shot and see if I can make it work, and I did. But it's important to note the Destroyer was not my first attempt, that I have had other attempts that have failed, and I've also looked at other genres. So one of the other things that you guys said, and I found was quite amusing, is that you didn't think that authorship was worth anybody's time. You looked at the top book being number 6,000 in the store, and most of you are like, man, that's terrible. There's no way I'd write in that category. Why are we even talking about it? Well, in the next segment of the video, I'm going to break down my income for June. I'm going to show you where the money comes from, what books are earning what percentages, and by the end of that, I think you'll understand why nonfiction is an important part of kind of my literary empire. It doesn't generate the most money, not by far. It's not the most amazing income compared to things like Destroyer, but it's something I enjoy, and it does make me some money, and you'll see exactly how much in just a minute. Once we finish the second segment of the video, I'm going to go into more of a traditional Q&A. I'll keep it short, it's just going to be a few questions. But they were, I think, very pertinent to the right to market material, and will clear up a lot of confusion for people. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown of my income for June. Okay, so we are taking a look at Book Report, which is an add-on available for your KDP dashboard. You can check it out at getbookreport.com, and no, I don't get anything special like a kickback for that. What it does is it breaks down into all these neat graphs, the percentages of each of your books, so that you can see kind of how you're doing with each title. So you can see that for the first half of the month, I'm just shy of $10,000 from ebooks. And you can see that the bulk of that, we'll come down here to this chart, over 70% of that is from Destroyer and Void Wraith. So Void Wraith is 41%, Destroyer is 32%, and then everything else fits into that last slice of the pie. So one of the number one questions that you guys ask is, why would you write nonfiction when you can make so much money selling fiction? And the answer is, you can make so much money if your book succeeds. If your book doesn't succeed, if you end up with a Hero Born, take a look at this. So Hero Born didn't come out all that long ago and is probably going to earn me, let's say $400 this month. And a large chunk of that $400 is going to come from people who read Destroyer and Void Wraith and are curious about Hero Born. So on its own, if I hadn't written Destroyer, Hero Born would be doing even worse. What happens with fiction is it does have a long tail, but it peters off very, very quickly. And so you're taking kind of a big risk when you aim for a big category. Hero Born was written for a massive audience and kind of failed to gain traction with that audience. I messed up, and I invested a lot of time in that costly lesson. Now let's contrast that to my nonfiction books. So if you look at this, right after Void Wraith and Destroyer, you've got Right to Market, 5,000 words per hour, Launch to Market, and then down a little ways you've got Lifelong Writing Habit. Each of these books pulls in consistent income, and the total of these is generally between $2,500 and $3,000 a month. It doesn't require much in the way of promotion. They sell month in, month out. I generally don't have to do much. There will be peaks and valleys, but they average out. And the beauty of this is, because they are in a smaller category and there is a lot less content in that category, they stay much more consistent. They're much more sticky. Whereas fiction, if you don't do anything with your fiction, 2 years from now, it's going to sink into the abyss and be at a six-figure rank. So that's the advantage of writing in a smaller category, especially when you look at things like length. So all of my novels, the short ones like Heroborn or Destroyer, are still 60,000 words long. Right to Market, 5,000 words per hour, these books are only 15,000 words. And because they are nonfiction, they're much, much faster to write. So a lot of you emailed me and you discounted nonfiction out of hand. You said it's too small to write in. You weren't sure I was looking at authorship. That's why, guys. I don't know what your income is like, but I'll tell you this much. I like having $3,000 a month every month from these books. It's great because it's a staple of my income, and it means that if I don't have a new release that month, I still have a strong kind of backbone to the money that I'm earning. So I definitely recommend when you're looking at your categories, taking things like that into account. How long are these books? How long is it going to take you to write them? And what is your competition like? Because sure, you can swing for the bleachers and try and get that home run like I did with Destroyer, but bear in mind the cost of failure is high. It's risk versus reward. So you're taking a big risk and the reward could be great, but it could also be really poor and you could find that your books never gain traction. If you write in a smaller category, and you knock it out of the park, you're not going to get rich. But even if you don't do terribly well, you're still making pretty good money and you're doing it consistently. So that really is the balance between the two. I hope this is helpful. I hope you can see now my rationale between why I write some fiction and some nonfiction. The important thing for me is to keep experimenting. So there are a ton of categories out there in both fiction and nonfiction. Some fiction allows you to write short, things like erotica. You can write a 10, 15,000 word piece and sell it for a full $2.99 and people will buy it all day long. So only you can really answer what your risk tolerance is and what you want to be writing, but I wanted to show you that both can be profitable. If you are familiar with S.J. Scott, he writes 2 to 4 nonfiction books a month. Since they only took about a week to crank out, imagine if you had 5 or 6 nonfiction categories and you were to just populate those categories with your books. Each book maybe wouldn't earn more than $400 or $500 a month. When you get 20 of those books out there, it adds up pretty quick. So just kind of a caution, don't automatically discount smaller categories. If you want to write something in that category and you think you can produce a good book, do it. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. If you have additional questions, please let me know. I'm going to move right into the rest of the Q&A session. So Kate asks, you've mentioned in Write to Market and again in Launch to Market that it's not necessarily good to have too many categories and that you'll address it later in the book, but I never saw where you addressed that. Good catch, it's never addressed again, and it is something that I think is really relevant to Write to Market. Many people will try to get their book into as many categories as possible, and you'll find a lot of us writers get upset when we'll go to a category and we'll see, hey, wait a minute, this is supposed to be about vampires, and yet 90% of the first page is some bare-chested dude in what is clearly romance or erotica that's been miscategorized. You see that all over Amazon. And what I have to ask is, how do you think readers react to that? They're looking for certain expectations. They want a book that matches the category that they're browsing. And if they see your book and they start to read it and they find that it differs significantly from what they were expecting, they're probably going to leave you bad reviews. And that's assuming they bought the book in the first place. So what I found is if you have your book listed in too many categories and it's not in the right places, not only will your sales suffer, but your reviews will suffer. And that's why you want to be careful to tailor your book to the categories it should belong in. It doesn't necessarily need to be everywhere just because you can make it be everywhere. Wider is not really better in every case, so I recommend taking some care with that. Second question is from Matthew Green. As an aspiring writer, what kind of balance should I look for between reading and writing time? I think it's a great question, and I think it's something that almost every writer that is watching this is probably getting wrong. It's something that drives me nuts. It makes me want to throttle people that are sending me emails. I got a lot of them recently, and if I could reach through the screen and pop you in the mouth, I probably would, those of you who sent me those emails. The issue that I'm running into is that many people approach me and said, oh, Chris, I'm going to write this book to market. And mysteriously, the book that you're choosing to write to market is going to be military science fiction. And so I'll ask these people, well, did you do your research? No. Have you read any books? No. One person said the only reading they did as research was the sample for Destroyer. The balance of your time needs to be at least as much reading as it is writing. If you want to succeed at this, you actually have to read books in the genre that you're doing. And I think a lot of people shortchange that. You rationalize how you can get away from that, but here's the bottom line. If you want to see what is working and what is not working, there is only one way to do that, and that is to read the books in the genre. I read at least a dozen over the last year in military science fiction. I know the tropes, I know how it goes, and that's part and parcel of why Destroyer has been so successful. I see a number of different people and they're putting together what appear to be decent books, but those books aren't written to market because they don't know the market. So if you want to err on the side of caution, I do think you should write every single day. But if you have to pick in the short term between writing and reading in your genre, read in your genre. You can start writing once you know what it is you're going to write. But you need to know that and find, if you need to stop at a library, that's cool. If money is an issue and you can't afford the books, there are other ways to get a hold of them. Do whatever it takes, but don't shortchange that. It can have a powerful, powerful effect on your career. And, if I sound a little upset, I am, guys, because I've said this. I've tried to beat you about the head and shoulders in Right to Market and in my other books. You've got to read. If you want to be good at this craft thing, if you want to make a living as a writer, it starts with reading. Anyway, I hope some portion of this video was helpful, including my rant in the Q&A. If it is, please feel free to leave a comment. If you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer them. And thanks for your time.